The gun pressed against her temple, and Sarah Mitchell smiled. Not because she wanted to die. Not because she had given up. She smiled because the man holding the weapon had no idea who he had just grabbed, and in 3 seconds, he was going to find out exactly how badly he had chosen his hostage. If stories like this move you, if you believe people can carry entire lives inside them that no one else can see, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that strength doesn't always look the way we expect, and subscribe to Midnight Tales so you never miss a story like this one. 6 hours earlier, Sarah had walked into St. Agnes Memorial Hospital the way she walked in every single day, quietly, efficiently, her badge clipped to pale blue scrubs, her dark hair pulled back into a tight knot, her face carrying the practiced calm of someone who had learned long ago how to hide everything underneath it. To her co-workers, she was simply Nurse Mitchell from the emergency department, the woman who never raised her voice, who could start an 4 and a screaming toddler without flinching, who stayed 2 hours past her shift when a patient needed someone to hold their hand while they died. Nobody asked where she had trained. Nobody asked why her hands never shook, even during the worst traumas, even when other nurses had to step outside to breathe. They assumed it was experience. They assumed it was simply who she was. They were only half right. 9 years earlier, Sarah had been someone else entirely. A different name, a different life, a different kind of uniform. She had served in a specialized military unit most people never learned existed, the kind that trained operatives to move through chaos without becoming part of it, to read a room of strangers in half a second and know exactly who posed a threat and who didn't. She had been good at it. Frighteningly good. And then, after a mission that still visited her in the quiet hours before dawn, after losing 2 people she loved like family, she had walked away from that world entirely. She wanted to save lives instead of ending them. She wanted to matter to people who never had to know what she had survived to become the woman standing in front of them. Nursing school had felt like penance and purpose all at once, and for 9 years, it had worked. She had built a quiet life. She had buried the killer instinct under scrubs and stethoscopes and the gentle rhythm of ordinary days. Until the Tuesday afternoon everything came rushing back. It started as a normal shift, chaotic in the way emergency rooms always were, full of crying children and anxious families and the low hum of monitors keeping their steady watch over fragile lives. Sarah was checking vitals on a patient in Bay 4 when the doors burst open and the screaming began. A man staggered in, blood soaking through his jacket, his eyes wild with something that wasn't just pain. Behind him came another man, taller, wilder, his face streaked with dirt and desperation, a pistol gripped in a trembling hand. He wasn't there for treatment. He was there because the man he had shot had run, and he intended to finish what he started, and he did not care who stood in his way. The waiting room dissolved into panic. Patients dove for cover. A young mother clutched her infant and pressed herself against the wall, sobbing. Security hadn't reached the doors yet. For 3 or 4 seconds, there was nothing standing between that gunman and a room full of terrified, defenseless people except the nurses and doctors frozen in place, none of them trained for anything like this. None of them except Sarah. She stepped forward instead of back. It was instinct, buried but never gone, the same instinct that had once kept her alive in places most people couldn't imagine. The gunman's eyes locked onto her, and in his panic, he grabbed the nearest warm body, wrapping an arm around her neck and pressing the barrel of the gun to her temple, shouting for everyone to stay back, shouting that he would kill her if anyone moved. He expected terror. He expected her to shake, to cry, to beg the way every hostage in every headline he had ever half listened to had begged. Instead, Sarah's pulse slowed. Her breathing steadied. Somewhere behind her calm blue eyes, the woman she used to be opened her eyes again for the first time in 9 years, and she began, without a single visible movement, to calculate. She noted the angle of his elbow, loose and untrained. She noted his grip on the weapon, sloppy, more terrified than lethal. She noted the way his eyes darted toward the doors every few seconds, a man who wanted an exit far more than he wanted a body count. She spoke to him softly, her voice the same gentle, grounding tone she used with frightened patience in the middle of the night, telling him she understood, telling him nobody here wanted to hurt him, telling him they could get his friend the help he needed if he just lowered the gun. It wasn't weakness. It was strategy, dressed in kindness, because Sarah had learned long ago that the most dangerous people in a room are rarely the loudest. And then, in the half-second his attention flickered toward the sound of approaching sirens outside, she moved. It happened faster than anyone in that waiting room could process. One moment the gun was pressed to her skull. The next, her hand had closed around his wrist, twisting the weapon away and down with a precision that looked less like panic and more like muscle memory carved into her bones. He hit the floor before he understood what happened, the gun skittering harmlessly across the tile, and Sarah knelt over him not with rage but with the same steady control she brought to every trauma she had ever worked, holding him down until security burst through the doors seconds later. For a long moment afterward, the room was silent except for scattered sobbing and the wail of the injured man being wheeled toward surgery. Every eye in that waiting room was fixed on the quiet nurse who had just, without raising her voice, without a single wasted movement, ended what could have been a massacre. Nobody said anything. Nobody knew what to say. The woman they thought they knew, the one who brought coffee to grieving families and stayed late to comfort frightened children, had just revealed a piece of herself none of them had ever imagined existed. In the weeks that followed, Sarah didn't talk about it much. She went back to her scrubs, her 12-hour shifts, her quiet apartment with the photographs she never showed anyone. But something inside her had shifted, some old wall between who she used to be and who she had chosen to become had finally come down, and she found she no longer needed to hide from either version of herself. She had spent 9 years believing she had to bury the soldier to become the healer. That day taught her the truth, she had never stopped being both. The strength that once helped her survive impossible missions was the same strength that let her hold a dying stranger's hand at 3 a.m. without breaking. It had never been two different women living inside her. It had only ever been one, learning, slowly, how to use everything she was for good. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that the quietest people often carry the deepest strength, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need it today, and subscribe to Midnight Tales so we can keep telling stories like Sarah's. And before you go, we have one small request. In the comments below, tell us one word that describes the strength you carry that most people never see. We read every single one, and we would love to know yours. Sarah Mitchell still works the night shift at St. Agnes Memorial. She still holds trembling hands in the dark. And somewhere beneath that calm, steady voice, a quiet kind of warrior watches over every soul that walks through those doors, ready, if she is ever needed again, to protect them with everything she once was and everything she has since become.